Hello, word nerds, and welcome to the dictionary. My name is Spencer, and welcome to episode F42 of this just most wonderful, fantastic, amazing, beautiful, silly, great podcast. Okay, let's just talk about these words in this episode. Oh, it looks like this is probably airing around Thanksgiving time. If you people in America and maybe other places celebrate Thanksgiving, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I think maybe in a couple of days it's Thanksgiving. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the first word, which is fault. F-A-U-L-T. First form. It says in poetry, you can pronounce it fought, no L, fault, or in poetry, fought. The fought, I can't make up a poem about fault right now. So this is a noun from the 13th century. We got a number of definitions and phrases and synonyms. So, number 1 is obsolete. The synonym is the word lack. So, Yeah, I can see a connection. It's not quite archaic. It's only obsolete. If you have a fault, I put in air quotes, a fault in your personality, or your body, maybe back in the day, they were like, you're lacking in something. You don't have something, which, whatever. I don't think any of us have any faults. But let's keep on reading. Let's get to the actual definitions. Number 2A, the synonyms are weakness and failing, but especially a moral weakness less serious than a vice. Now, I think of a vice as like a thing that you do that makes you feel better mentally, emotionally, physically. That's maybe not the greatest thing to do, like maybe watching some trashy TV shows, reality TV shows. That could be a vice, or it could be something much more extreme. But this is a moral weakness less serious than a vice. What is a moral weakness? Ooh, I don't know. That feels like a very loaded phrase. That's a fault, a weakness, a failing. Interesting. I want an example on that one. So to be, it's going to be related, a physical or intellectual imperfection or impairment, and the synonym is defect. I much prefer to talk about these types of faults in non-living things. Maybe if the glass is cracked, we could call that a fault. It's a physical imperfection or impairment. It's a defect. It's not right. It's not perfect. But when you're talking about people, that gets judgmental. And I think we are all perfect. All of our weird intricacies that you might want to call a fault, no, they're just you. You're perfect, you're great, and I don't like to say that people have an intellectual any sort of imperfection or impairment. That doesn't feel right. No, of course not. To see, an error, especially in service in a net or racket game. Let's go play a racket game. What racket game would you like to play? I would like to play the tennis racket game, or the volleyball racket game, or the ping pong racket game, or the pickleball racket game. What's the other one? Badminton racket game. Ooh, I love playing all the racket games. Wait, so what is this? An error, especially in service in a net. Okay, yeah, so when you are serving the thing, the ball, the scuttlebutt. No, what is it called in badminton? The hockey puck? No, crap, what's it called? I think of Tweety, the Tweety bird. So what the hell is the thing? The shuttlecock. Shuttlecock? Maybe. When you serve it, it's supposed to go over the net, not under the net, not through the net. Once it hits the net, that is a fault. You faulted. You screwed up. So that's what they called it in those racket games. Okay, 3A, the synonym is misdemeanor. Number 3B, The synonym is mistake. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I made a fault. That's my fault. My fault, my bad. I say that a lot. I make lots of mistakes. 4. Responsibility for wrongdoing or failure, as in the accident was the driver's fault. Yep, that's the one that gets pinned on me all the time. That's my fault. Sorry, I made that podcast. That's my fault. I take responsibility for that thing. It was wrong of me to do that. I didn't realize what I was doing. It was an accident. So many reasons why something can be your fault. Number 5. A fracture in the crust of a planet, as the Earth or Moon, accompanied by a displacement of one side of the fracture with respect to the other, usually in a direction parallel to the fracture. There is a picture of this fault. Number 5. Number 1. So, okay, what do we got? We got so many things going on here. So number 1 is the fault, and this is it's like a cross section of, looks like a couple of hills, pretty much. Definitely need to post a picture of this one. So if I'm seeing this correctly, yeah, it looks like we're looking at a cross section, and there's a line that goes, it's not quite 90 degrees, it goes maybe 70, 80 degrees, that goes from like the top of the hill down, and that is the fault. That's number 1. That's the fault with displaced strata. And the strata are the horizontal sections that go across. We've got numbers A, B, C, D, and E. So on the right side of the fault, the strata are up at the top of the hill, and on the left side of the fault, the strata are below the other strata. So what happened was there was probably an earthquake or something, and the land got shifted because of this fracture, the tectonic plates moving about underneath, and so then there's a fault line that gets created. Number 2, by the way, in this little chart here, this image is called the scarp, and that is, I don't know what more specifically it is, but it's the area to the left side of the fault line above the strata. So is it like stuff that landed on top? I don't know. I don't know exactly what the scarp is. It's a fracture in the crust of the planet or moon accompanied by displacement of one side of the fracture with respect to the other side. Yep, they just shifted in respect to each other. Usually in the direction parallel to the fracture. Yeah. Like I said, this is all about the tectonic plates across the Earth, and they're shifting and moving based on, I don't know, lots of factors probably. And there are places in the world that have these faults. I think the LA, all of California, but mostly I think LA for some reason, has these faults, these fault lines. They get earthquakes periodically. Iceland is weird because it sits on top of two tectonic plates that are moving away from each other. And so there's this area, I think it's called Thingvellir, that's like this kind of like a canyon that's literally being separated over all these years, just a little bit at a time, a little bit every year, and it's growing and growing and growing. Now, is that considered a fault? I'm not sure. I think it sounds like the fault has to be the thing where the pieces shift on either side of the fault. I guess. I don't know. It's a mistake. It's a misdemeanor. It's a lacking, a weakness, a failing, a weakness in the land, in the crust. Hope my pizza crust doesn't have any faults. Okay, couple of phrases. At fault. Number 1, unable to find the scent and continue chase. So is this the dogs are getting the scent and they are chasing the person, the criminal who did the bad thing? Hopefully they're not chasing a fox to kill and eat or for the hunters to shoot. I don't like that. Unable to find the scent. Those dogs are at fault. They lost the scent. they really screwed up there. Number 2 for at fault is open to blame, and the synonym is responsible, as in, you were really at fault. You were really at fault. Yep, I am at fault. Uh, I think this is definitely in the legal world when it's a car accident or something like that. They're like, that's the person who is at fault. It was their responsibility, and they now owe the other person $1. The other phrase is to a fault, and this means to an excessive degree, as in precise to a fault. It's too much. It's excessive. I used to be, I don't know, maybe a bit of a perfectionist to a fault. I've loosened up in my old age. I don't know if I'm anything to a fault anymore. Yeah, I probably am. Somewhere in there. Something to a fault. It's just so much that it becomes a problem. It can become a problem. Let's see. I think now is the time that we are going to talk about the synonym information. Oh, or actually before that, we should look at the etymology. Let's see. Anything interesting here to say? It comes from the Latin fallere, which means to deceive or disappoint. Oh, that hill really disappointed me when it shifted. Such a disappointing hill. With the strata over here on one side and the strata over there on the other side, with the strata over here and the strata over there, and they don't match up, and it's really disappointing. That's what it is. Okay, synonym information: fault, failing, frailty, foible, and vice mean an imperfection or weakness of character. Fault implies a failure, not necessarily culpable, to reach some standard of perfection in disposition, action, or habit, as in a writer of many virtues and few faults. Oh, I would love to have few faults. I have lots of faults. Anything else about that one? Implies a failure, not necessarily culpable to reach the standard of perfection, blah, 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 blah. You get it. Failing suggests a minor shortcoming in character. A minor shortcoming in character. That's what it is. What is that? Let's have an example. Being late is a failing of mine. That is not a failing of mine. I get to places early. I can't help it. I just do. Unless I'm with other people, then maybe we might be late. A shortcoming in character. Again, it's a little judgmental, but hey, whatever. Those are the words. Frailty. Frailty implies a general or chronic proneness to yield to temptation. As in human frailties. That's not a very descriptive example. Doesn't really help me understand it anymore, other than humans have frailties. Humans have a proneness to yield to temptation. If something is tempting you, oh, I don't know, maybe if there are some French fries, maybe French fries are one of my frailties. Things that are unhealthy, donuts, sugar things, fried things. Oh, I try not to have those things, and sometimes I must have those things. That is a frailty of mine. Is it a fault? I don't know if it would be considered a fault. Maybe it's just a frailty. Is it because I'm frail when the thing is out there tempting me? I am so weak. I am so weak, and I must experience it. Sure, why not? Let's see the next one. I have an itch on my nose. I am so sorry. I am human. That is one of my human frailties. The next word is foible. And of course, every time I hear this word, I can't not think of Bulbous Bouffant, which I have heard countless times because I made an animation for the audio. And in it, that the main character says, foible. A foible applies to a harmless or endearing weakness or idiosyncrasy, as in an eccentric's charming foibles. Charming foibles. That would be a fun band name. Spencer and the Charming Foibles. Harmless or endearing weakness or idiosyncrasy. This is something that I feel like I'm much more willing to have foibles instead of frailties or faults. Uh, because they're harmless and they're kind of endearing. They're like, oh, Spencer, he's so sweet with all of his foibles. He's full of foibles. He's got those charming foibles. That's what I want people to say. Vice. Okay, here we go. Vice can be a general term for any imperfection or weakness, but it often suggests violation of a moral code or the giving of offense to the moral sensibilities of others, as in, compulsive gambling was his vice. So let's backtrack. Where did we see vice come up before? Was it in one of the definitions? Responsibility of wrongdoing, failure, misdemeanor. I can't find. Oh, almost the first one. Number 2A. Weakness or failing, especially a moral weakness less serious than a vice. And the vice sort of a description here in the synonym information went a little bit more beyond than what I think of a vice is. A general term for any imperfection or weakness. So if you have a weakness for gambling, the gambling is the vice. I guess, yeah. But it often suggests violation of a moral code or the giving of offense to the moral sensibilities of others. I never really thought about it that way. The violation of a moral code. I mean, you can have, like, coffee can be your vice. Sex, drinking, drugs, gambling. Is that violating a moral code if you are doing something to yourself to make you feel better physically, emotionally, temporarily? It's probably not very good and healthy for you, but is it violating a moral code? Now, clearly, there are some things that will definitely get to that level, but I don't know. I don't think all of the vices are like that. I remember many years ago, somebody said to me, "What, Spencer? What is your vice? Do you have any vices?" And this was at the time that I had never been drunk before. I had never done any drugs, anything like that. And I was like, and I didn't like coffee. Didn't drink coffee. It's like, no, I guess I don't have any vices. I am viceless. But all that has changed. Ha 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 ha. Okay, we are done with that word fault. It was very long, a very big section of this episode. So now I'm going to make a sound effect, and I don't know of a sound that is fault related. Oh. Is that fault? Oh, it's my fault. Oh, crap. Oh, sure, why not? Let's do that sound effect. Now we have the second form of fault. This is a verb from the 15th century starting with intransitive. Number 1, to commit a fault, and the synonym is err, E-R-R, like error. You made an error, you erred, you faulted. Yeah, baseball players err, so they fault. They screwed up. Number 2, to fracture so as to produce a geological fault. The land faulted. The crust faulted. And it made a fault. Transitive is number 1, to find a fault in. As in, easy to praise this book and to fault it. H.G. Repke. I don't know how to say this last name. Repke? Roepke? R-O-E-P-K-E. Just like to say it in a silly way. Repke. H.G. Repke. So they said it was easy to praise this book, but also to fault it, also to find faults in it. So that's a very interesting book, an interesting situation. You're praising it for lots of things, but then you're faulting it for other things. I mean, nothing's perfect, I guess, but everything is perfect. I think everything is perfect. Number 2 is to produce a geological fault in. Number 3, the synonyms are blame and censure, as in, can't fault them for not coming. I can't blame them for not coming to our party because it was a party that was all about sand, and it's maybe not the most fun party because people don't like getting sand all up in their crevices. We filled our apartment with sand, and all the drinks have sand in them. They're sand related, so I can't fault them. It's not their fault. We just made a stupid party. Oh. Next is fault finder. One word, noun from 1558. This is one given to fault finding, which is our next word. Fault finding, adjective from 1622, disposed to find fault. Also, captiously critical. And the synonym is the word critical. Yes, okay. So, we got another one. Let's just get right into that. The second form of fault finding is a noun from circa 1611, petty, nagging, or unreasonable criticism. Is there? No, I think that's fine. So, a fault finder is somebody who is just looking for faults all over the place. Probably not the faults in the crust. This is faults in other people. You didn't do that so good, and this is how you should do it. Sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit of a fault finder. But it's not to try to be critical. It's like, well, this can be better. And I don't almost ever say anything. I feel like it's like, why? That just sounds like you're being an asshole. If you're calling out people's faults, why would you do that? And it's not faults. It's like that was just that one little situation. Maybe we could do it a little bit better. But I tend to just try and keep it to myself because that's not nice. That's not appropriate. But there are people who are fault finders, and they're just out there. They're looking for faults. They're doing their fault finding business. They're being critical, captiously critical, whatever that means. They're disposed to find faults. That's just how they were raised. That's how they grew up. They were disposed to that. And they are maybe petty. The fault finding, when they find it and they talk about it, they have petty, nagging, or unreasonable criticism. It's not your place to be talking about all of our faults. Does it make you feel better? Does it make you feel better to find all these faults, be a fault finder, doing your fault finding business? I don't know. I feel like that's a very negative head state to live in, and I think it's better to live in a more positive mind state, head state, whatever you want to call that state of mind, because you're going to feel better when you're positive. Okay. I made a mistake. Next is faultless, adjective from the 14th century, having no fault. The synonym is irreproachable. Irreproachable. So does that mean that you are not reproachable? You can't be reproached? What does reproached mean? Something about fault. As in faultless workmanship. When they made those cabinets out of wood, it was perfect and flawless. No faults. It was faultless, in fact. I have never seen such beautiful workmanship. Mwah! Chef's kiss. Hard words to say. Chef's kiss on that cabinet. Faultlessly is an adverb, and faultlessness is a noun. And that's that for that one. Fault line, 2 words, noun from 1869. Something resembling a fault. The synonyms are split and rift, as in a major conceptual fault line in foreign policy. That's a quote from Morton Kondrak, or Kondraki, or I don't know another way to say it. A fault line in foreign policy. There is a rift, a split in maybe how these candidates think of how foreign policy should go. Oh boy, by the time this episode is airing, we have theoretically, possibly, a presumptive new president. But right now I'm living in times when the debate just happened, and I think there might be a little bit of a fault line between our two presidential candidates and how they think of foreign policy and lots of other issues. Okay, I'm not going to think about that anymore. Fault tolerant. 2 words with a hyphen. Adjective from 1975. This is relating to or being a computer or program with a self-contained backup system that allows continued operation when major components fail. We don't ever want components to fail, but sometimes they do. And so there are programs, I think even the program that I'm using to record this video called OBS has fault-tolerant stuff in there. In fact, I think that they just put out an update that said something like they have, is it better fault-tolerant or something like that? I know vMix, sometimes I use a program called vMix, and that has fault-tolerant when you're recording. So it's like if there's a fault, if there's a problem, it will tolerate the fault and keep on going. Fault-tolerant. Fault tolerance is a noun. Okay. Oh, faulty. Adjective from the 14th century, marked by fault or defect. This synonym is imperfect. So, sometimes you hear about cars being called lemons, and that means they are a faulty car. There is something wrong with it. Like, there was the one car that I think had, like, the gas tank in the back, and so if you, like, tapped or hit lightly the back of the car, it would explode. And that was very bad. That's a faulty car. I don't know, there's some other ones, but I think that's sort of the famous one. Faulty, yeah, that's good. Faultily is an adverb, and faultiness is a noun. Next is faun, or faun, spelled F-A-U-N. This is a noun from the 14th century. Don't worry, in a couple of episodes, we will get to the other faun, which is the very cute baby deer. So faun is a figure in Roman mythology similar to, but gentler than the satyr. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. But if you don't know what the satyr is, then how are you supposed to know what the faun is? It is similar to the satyr, but gentler. Similar, but gentler. So in Greek mythology, a satyr, also known as a Silenus, and I should know here, let's turn up the speaker and so we can hear the pronunciation of this.
Satyr.
Satyr. That's kind of what I said. Silenus is a male nature spirit with ears and a tail resembling those of a horse, as well as a permanent, exaggerated erection. Was not expecting that to go there. Okay, so let's click on that. Wow. And let's look on this page to see if faun, well, okay, I believe that faun, F-A-W-N, directly comes from this because this satyr creature thing has, like, animal parts. Faun is definitely on this page. Oh, it's another name. Faun is another name for the satyr. Interesting. They commonly appear in works of fantasy with the most. So yes, they are often referred to as fauns in like children's stories and things like that. That's probably where they remove the erection. I think when the erection goes away, then you can call it a faun. Okay, that was fascinating. I mean, I think I've heard these words in terms of Roman mythology, but did not know what they were. Didn't remember if I heard it. I don't know. I don't believe that they taught us about the exaggerated erection when we were learning about this mythology stuff in freshman year high school. That's why they're gentler. Okay, fantastic. The last word is fauna, Fauna, noun from 1771. Animal life, that's what it is. It's animal life, but especially the animals characteristic of a region, period, or special environment. And it says compared to flora, which would be the plant life, but specifically the plant life in a region, period, or special environment. Because yeah, you hear people say the flora and the fauna of this little thing, this area, this whatever. The flora and the fauna in my office are me and this monkey, and I don't have plants. So I just have fauna and no flora. Maybe my microgut biome has flora and fauna. I don't know. Haven't talked with them for a while. Faunal is an adjective. Faunally is an adverb. Faunally. So the etymology says this is from Latin fauna, which is the sister of faunus or faunus. But I don't know who they are, and now I want to look that up because I think it's probably good to know. Let's look up faunus because for some reason the male people are always more common, easier to find information on than the women for some reason. So faunus was the rustic god of the forest, plains, and fields. When he made cattle fertile, he was called Inuus. He came to be equated in literature as the Greek god Pan, after which Romans depicted him as a horned god. So fauna is the sister of Faunus. Here we go. A goddess of like attributes called Fauna or Fatua was associated in his worship. She was regarded as his sister and wife. Okay. The female deity Bonadea was often equated with Fauna. Okay, and yeah, there's not going to be nearly as much information about Fauna because, again, boys and girls were not equal. So yeah, just the animals and the forest, plains, fields. Yeah. Okay. That's it for that part. And here comes the part where he picks a word of the episode. Word. This is the word of the episode. Today we had fault finder, fault finding, faultless, fault line, fault tolerant, faulty, fawn, and fauna. There was that show that I never really watched very much, but it was very silly, called Fawlty Towers. That's a show that I should watch. Probably only had a handful of episodes because those British shows didn't last very long, but they had such a huge impact. Those towers were so faulty they fell over. What do I want to pick? I don't know. For some reason, I just want to pick faulty. This song is faulty. This song is faulty. There's a lot of problems with this song. Now I'm going to tell you about a movie that I watched. Oh, yes. On the plane, for whatever occasion that was, I watched Bridesmaids because I hadn't seen that movie for a while. And I was just like, yes, please, give me something silly. So funny, so funny. It's like one of the best classic comedies of all time. It became an instant classic. And I gotta blow my nose. So we're gonna end this episode. Thank you so much for checking out this show. And until next time, this is Spencer dispensing information. Goodbye.